Let's take some time to design your remote life. Well, what does that mean? There's a particular place you are in your life right now, and then there's a particular place where you want to be. So, having an honest assessment right now with where you're at and the type of change that's going to be required to go remote is really important. So, one of the first things that I want to talk about is the different kind of considerations that you should have about your career, because there are layers of complexity to this. Because if you're trying to go to a remote position, that is already, for a lot of people, going to be a complex change, right? You may be entering a new organization, you may be not have ever worked remotely before. There's a lot of different things to consider. So beyond that, you may also be switching from a big company to a small company, or a small company to a big company, or you may be switching roles and trying to find something that you want to do differently, or you might be switching industries completely. And all of these things are going to create a different layer of complexity on top of already finding a remote position. So you need to be aware of what are the types of things that you might have to overcome in this process, and that might change the trajectory of how you search for your remote position. Now, in addition to that, we also need to look at how you're spending your time. A lot of people, when they enter a job search, they're not exactly sure how to structure the search itself, right? They may not really have a good grasp on their habits and the routines and the things that they do every day already. So how can you expect to add a remote job search on top of that and be successful if you're already not as successful as you want to be with your calendar? So there's a quote that says, "Show me how you spend your time, I'll show you how I'll show you your priorities." And I think that that's a very fair assessment here. So we're going to also go over what the different priorities that you have are, to try to figure out what is your ideal remote life. And when you finally have a destination, you can figure out where you're going. And part of that is visualization. There are a lot of studies around the power of visualization and what it can do for you if you integrate it into your life. And there's been some studies that show that your brain doesn't always know the difference between imagination and your visualization and reality. So I think when you start to really picture what your remote life is going to look like, you start to give yourself a sense of how that's actually going to play out in your critical thinking skills and your problem solving skills. The how comes in between. But if you already know the what, like what you want, that's incredibly important. A lot of people use the top performers of the world all swear by visualization. You can look it up. It's something that pretty much anybody who's succeeding at very high levels is using. There's also Alice in Wonderland. There's a quote that basically says, she was saying, I want to go anywhere, and then he says, well, it doesn't matter which way you go. So being targeted on like what you want out of life, and this is even outside of just the remote job search, is important. So get a sense of like what you actually want your life to look like, and then we can work towards that. The last thing here is ideal situation. So again, what do you want? And sometimes that can be hard to answer, right? Because we feel like we want something, and then we start to get it, and we're like, oh no, I actually don't want that. But really what we need to answer at the moment is like, what's the priority in the type of job that you want? And I'm going to have a worksheet that goes over all those things. What's the best case scenario? And all those things are really important. And we also have to think about like productivity, like what are the most important things to you? Because remote work might actually not be right for you. For some people, it's not the right thing. They prefer the socialization rather than isolation. They actually prefer being in an office environment. They probably don't prefer the commute, but maybe they don't have to commute very far. So there's a lot of different things that you need to consider. And in this section, we just really need to be honest and hold up the mirror and say, what is it that I actually want? And once we do that, we can move forward in this process with a better idea of how you're going to get it.